Hi, everybody. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas, Texas on Sunday, June the 22nd. And tonight we'll be chatting with our good friend George Rodriguez in South Texas. Got a couple of things I want to get into with George. Talk a little bit more about ICE and these operations that they're conducting nationwide. And then, of course, talk about this military operation Saturday night. A stunning operation, really, from a military standpoint, and that brings back some of the, for many of us, the fact that we've been talking about Iran for 40 years. So let me say hello to our friend George. How are you, George?
Very good, very good.
They're supposed to be very hot up here this week.
It is.
How
It
about
is
down there?
very warm here. It's humid.
Yeah,
It was the high was 95, but it was very humid.
yeah. It was a warm day, one of those days that I guess swimming pool day, as I like to call it.
Yes.
Good day to be in the swimming pool, because that's exactly what you need. Well, let's talk about this military operation, Georgia, which is really, I mean, the military operation itself was pretty amazing. But for many of us, I think you and I are in that group. We've been hearing about Iran now for 40 years, maybe 45. My first, of course, context of Iran was when the Shah was thrown out of the country in the late 70s. Then came, of course, the hostage crisis. Then came all of the different confrontations that President Reagan had with Iran in the 1980s. And then came the message that every president had said since, and that is that we would not tolerate a nuclear Iran. Well, I guess finally somebody drew the line and took out their nuclear facilities. But let me just get just your reaction. We'll get into more details later, but just your reaction to the military operation itself, George.
Well, I think it was stunning. I think it was absolutely uh, very well executed. It was kept quiet, no leaks, and even then, the um, uh, the way that the operation took place, there were zero casualties for Americans. No plane was shot down. Uh, there was absolute, I mean, total success. It's very difficult to find words to praise it at this
Mm-hmm.
point.
Right.
It's and it was something that was very necessary, in my opinion. This was not landing troops to get them involved in a land war or anything of the nature. This was a surgical strike, and it was done and over.
Right.
That people are worried that somehow we're going to get embroiled in a land war. I think there is some worry about that, but I don't think that it's going to. I don't think this president is going to do that. This was a surgical strike to hit what was necessary, and it was done and over.
Right. No, I agree with you. I thought it was an absolutely stunning operation, militarily speaking. I mean, the fact that you could fly these planes from Missouri to Iran, and you can go into Iranian airspace and take out these facilities, and the Iranians don't have a clue of what's going on. I mean,
Exactly.
it is just from a military standpoint, it's just an unbelievable operation. Now, the fear that some people have is that, of course, we will be drawn into a land war. I don't have that fear, George, because
I
I
don't
think
either.
I think that they've made it obvious that this is. I mean, it's sort of up to Iran now. Iran is going to determine where it goes from here. If they are stupid enough to start shooting at military bases, it's not going to go well for Iran. Uh, the other thing too is the Israelis are going to continue their mission. I mean, we've made it a lot easier for them, of course, but they're going to continue their mission to downgrade the Iranian military. I do have two fears, George. I do have two fears. Um, Fear number one is Europe, and some of these populations in Europe that, let's just say, for the sake of the conversation, let's just say they're not very European,
Yeah,
if I
right.
could put it that way. And I think some of these populations could become a problem. I mean, I think Europe has pretty much.
We have already seen terrorist um, attacks in Berlin and in London and in other places. And
Well,
I think
sure.
that I think that it's very possible that we're going to see even more.
That's right. And I think the key to that is that what I think is going to happen is that you're going to have massive protests in favor of
We're
Iran.
seeing that already,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
And these protests are going to be huge in these European capitals. And they could very easily degenerate into confrontations with the authorities. So that's my fear. Now, that's far away in the sense that it's Europe, but it is a fear. My second fear is right here in the United States. And that is where, we really don't know. I was listening to Tom Holman today during an interview, and he said that there's a couple of million people that are so-called gotaways that we don't know who they are. We have no idea where they are. They got away, as they say. Now, my gut feeling, George, is that 99% of those people just got in. They're probably working somewhere under the table, and they're not a threat in that sense to anybody. But it doesn't take more than 1% to bring about some operation. And remember, George, we used to hear about these men crossing the border, these groups of men from all these different countries, military-age men who are crossing the border. So that's my biggest fear, that the enemy may in fact be within. Now, how much damage they can do, and I guess a lot of that is going to have to do with how good our security is, how good our police is. We saw in Boulder, Colorado, a man go berserk, and he was throwing these fire bombs at a crowd that was marching. That's the kind of thing I'm fearful about, George. That is the biggest fear that I have with respect to retaliation from Iran. I don't think they can hit our bases. I don't think they can attack us militarily, obviously. And Israel can defend itself quite well from this point on. But it's here in the United States, George, where I have some fears.
And I think that those fears are very real. As you recall, I've been watching the border for the past 7 years. And I know for a fact that at least in the past 4 years, at least 300 known people that were known to be on the terrorist watch list were intercepted at the southern border. We don't have an accurate count for the northern border. We don't have an accurate count for the people that flew in. But 300 at our southern border, that's a lot of people. Now, these are the people, like I said, that got caught. Like you mentioned, that 99% might be, of the millions that came in. But let's say that there is only 1% then that came in that are sleepers, that are here to create havoc. 1% of 2 million, 1% of 8 million. I mean, that's of 2 million, that's 20,000 people. That's right. A lot of terrorists, possible terrorists.
Right.
It is a very scary, dangerous situation we're looking at. The second thing that I worry about is that we are living in a time where most of our cities are woke, where most of our cities care more about racial profiling, about DEI, about social justice than they do about watching our backs.
Right.
And the police departments are not fully funded. I know here in San Antonio, we have a lack of detectives. We have a real need for patrol officers. Something happens, they are not supposed to do this. They're not supposed to do that. They can't chase a car. They can't stop somebody that looks foreign. I mean, there's all sorts of things that they can't do. So the combination of people having come in, as well as the handcuffs that our police officers have, really worries me.
I agree with you. I agree with you 100% because San Antonio is not the only city that has a shortage. Yep. Philadelphia has a shortage. Baltimore has a shortage. In fact, I think that most of the so-called blue cities have had trouble recruiting police officers, and they've lost them. Many early retirement, many people just getting out as soon as they can.
Correct.
And that's where the
Why would you want to
potential.
be a police officer under these
Well, and
circumstances?
that's right. It's not a. I mean, it was always a dangerous job, but
Yeah.
but before you had to
Now it's a
worry about the
thankless job.
right, but before you had to worry about the criminal. Now you have to worry about the politician tying your hands
That's right.
and not letting you do your job. But I really hope that Homeland Security goes into a almost like a wartime footing right now with
Yes.
respect to these people in the country, and that we really unleash whatever resources we can to find out who they are, where they are, because that's what worries me the most, George. A potential terrorist act here in the United States. I'm not talking about 9/11 because that was a unique thing when they had airplanes. But you talk about bridges, you talk about tunnels,
That's right.
you
That's
talk
right.
about buildings. I mean, these are serious concerns.
Crowd gatherings,
Crowd
A
gathering,
mass shooting would be very
sporting
simple.
sporting events. I mean, all kinds of things that would be very tempting. You've got is it the World Cup coming up? I
You've
don't think
got
it's this year.
you've got several
Yeah,
tournaments, soccer tournaments going on. You've got the 4th of July coming up.
right.
You've got a lot of activities that are going on that would present very good targets for these crazy
Right.
people.
Well, college football games starting in a few months, so all kinds of things like that. So I'm really hopeful that that can be explained to the American people, so that they become, in a sense, detectives as well
Yes.
in the process here, so that they can help Homeland Security. I mean, look, remember back after 9/11, where everybody was always looking around, you
Exactly.
know, and that's kind of what we need. We have to go back to that kind of mindset. But yeah, I mean, that's what worries me the most. These people who are in here and we don't know who they are, and then kind of leads me to my next topic. Oh, by the way, before we get to the next topic, the Democrats, of course, this was predictable. They're saying that President Trump didn't have the authority to do this,
Correct.
and there's even some talk about impeachment. And Well, first of all, where were these Democrats when President Clinton, President Obama, President Biden did these attack type situations? We're not talking here about committing troops.
Yeah.
I mean, I can understand if you're going to, like with Iraq and Afghanistan, to their credit, both President Bush 1 and President Bush 2 went to Congress and got a resolution. So that's what you do.
But those were major incursions. Those were major.
That's right. And also there it wasn't an emergency from one day to the other where you had to act.
Yep.
It was one of those things where you were building up troops and you were setting things up and you wanted to have the congressional resolution with you. So that is a totally different situation. I think this one is more applicable to the other ones that we've had, where you've had, like, for example, when President Reagan went after Gaddafi in '86. Remember, after that discotheque in Germany, remember that? And he went after
And again,
Gaddafi.
those are surgical strikes.
Exactly.
There's a big difference. Those are postures of defense. They are situations of retaliation. They're not a situation where you're going in to remove a government and to change the government. I mean, that's what happened in Iraq, and in the Gulf War. It was to liberate a country.
Right.
So those are completely. This is a surgical strike that was needed and was necessary, and in Iran has for the past 45 years chanted regularly death to America, and if we can't take a hint on that, then I'm not sure. What?
That's right. Yeah, that's a pretty good hint. Not only that, George, but you remember the Marines. You mentioned that to me earlier today. The Marines in
1983,
Beirut.
307 Marines were attacked. Were killed.
That's right.
By a suicide
so
bomber
that was
from Iran.
and that was all on them. They did that. They're the ones paying for it, because Iran uses these little groups to do their ugly work, but they're the ones financing the whole thing. They're doing everything. So I mean, I think it was time to take them out.
They continued to do it with the Houthis and with the Hamas.
That's exactly right.
They continued to do it.
continue to do it, and that's the kind of thing that if you break down their country, hopefully they don't have the money to do that. But these groups still have a lot of money. We may have to act against the Houthis, and we may have to act against some of these people and just literally put them out of business.
Yep.
Which is, I think, what President Trump is saying, that if they want to push their luck, we're going to put them out of business. But a lot of different, a lot of different instances. I think in the case of Iraq and in the case of Afghanistan, or not Afghanistan so much, but right after 9/11, because Afghanistan was a different operation. That's when President Obama increased the troop levels to like 100,000. Before that, it was more of a going after terrorist operation in Afghanistan.
Correct.
That's what President Bush had done. But anyway, we're not, it's not like you say, we're going in with 100,000 troops or 500,000 troops like we did in Kuwait, where it's an operation you go in and you get out. And I was reading from Jonathan Turley, the professor, Georgetown University, I think, law school. And he was saying that President Trump has more than enough authorization to do this on the very same anti-terrorism resolution that Congress passed after 9/11, when it basically said to the president, we're going to give you ample discretion here to use whatever is necessary to go after terrorism.
This
So
situation
I think
with
there's
the
plenty
Democrats,
there.
just politics again. It's just politics. They're more interested in being political than they are in defending the country, which is outrageous.
I agree. And I don't understand, and this kind of ties into ICE. We want to talk about ICE too, because ICE is, the ICE operations, George, are working quite well in most places.
Yeah.
It's in the sanctuary cities where it doesn't work well. But in most places it works.
That's understandable in the sanctuary cities.
Yeah, that's right.
That's understandable, because you're getting no support, as well as you're getting resistance, as well as you've got a lot of folks who are there because it's a sanctuary city.
Right, exactly. So here you have a situation, for example, in Texas, where a city has to work with ICE, doesn't really have a choice. It has to work with ICE. So, ICE does whatever they have to do. Usually the way it works, and you know this as well as anybody, the local government or the local police identifies someone, and then they turn them over to ICE, and ICE takes over from there. Yeah. The situation in LA is that they know who they're looking for, but the local government is blocking their way.
Correct.
With all kinds of tricks.
In some cases, helping them to escape.
That's right. So that creates a very unfortunate situation for the ICE agents. And then, like we saw on the video, where they're throwing things at them and putting their lives in danger, to the point that they have to cover their faces, because I understand people were taking photos of their faces and putting it on the internet and even identifying where these people live.
Exactly. Now, to be further clear on this thing, that was happening under Trump. That was happening with Border Patrol agents at the border during the first Trump administration. Border Patrol agents were being followed in McAllen and in Brownsville and in Laredo. They were being followed home. They were being threatened. Their kids were being threatened at school. I mean, so this is not something new. This is something expanded and more menacing. But these people are interfering with the law.
Oh, absolutely. Now, I think the good news is that the Trump administration is very much committed to ending these sanctuary cities. And it's going to be hard, because some of these places, not only do they have local support, but they also have a lot of media support, because unfortunately, a lot of the media coverage is you're separating a 4-year-old girl from her mother. And then
later you find out it's not completely true. But
that's right. Later we find out it's a lot more complicated than that.
Yes.
Like the father is this or the mother is that. But that's the thing that they're going to have to really, I suggested to you before the show that maybe what Homeland Security needs to do is to put more of the pictures of the people they're arresting on TV, so that the public sees what they're doing, and they don't buy in.
They understand that these are not innocent bystanders.
No, not at all. Now, my guess is that most Americans understand that. It's just a gut feeling that most Americans understand that what ICE is doing is removing criminals. My gut feeling is that most Americans understand that. But you're right. I mean, there is a certain element in the media that just wants to, make the
The
good guys into bad
sensationalism, the
guys.
sensationalism
Yeah,
for the sake of sympathy, that's what worries me, because
right.
eventually people begin to wear down and accept uh, the exaggerations.
Right. Well, the agents do. I mean, their morale begins to
Yeah, exactly.
wear down. Now, in California, of course, you had that Supreme Court decision, not Supreme Court, it was actually Court of Appeals decision where they put the National Guard or back in the hands of President Trump. But I thought that was a really embarrassing opinion for the governor of California, because what the Court of Appeals did, all three judges, so it was 3-0, they basically said, yes, Trump is right. He needs to put in this, he needs to put the extra force or federalize the guard because the local government is not doing their job. Now,
Yeah, right.
how in the world the governor didn't resign after that, or the mayor didn't resign after that? I mean, that was a rather embarrassing conclusion by a 3-judge panel.
Well, I mean, even worse than that, yesterday, on Friday, both the governor and the mayor, specifically the mayor, were absolutely denying that there was any problem. I mean, they were on CNN and MSNBC, where their favorite places to go, and they were both absolutely saying that there were no problems, that the problems were made worse by President Trump and by the presence of the National Guard. I mean, it's very, very just outlandish that they would make that comment, but they did it. But they said it with a straight face.
Right. And I know. And it's just remarkable to me because when they went to the Court of Appeals, the Court of Appeals basically rejected 3-0
Exactly.
the arguments being made by the governor of California. And they basically gave it to Trump.
Pretty strong, 3-0.
That's pretty strong, 3-0. So, I mean, I don't know how these people, I don't know how they, I guess
I don't see how they, I don't know how they see themselves in the mirror.
Well, that, and I don't know why they continue to be elected, but maybe that's something that I mean, that's up to California, I guess. They're going to have to figure it out. But they're getting really bad governance. These people are getting some really bad government for their votes. So I don't know how else to tell you. But I do believe that the Trump administration is very committed to ending these sanctuary cities, and there has to be a court opinion or maybe some way of challenging the legality of a sanctuary city, similar to what President Obama did with the Arizona law, if you remember that, back in when they used to say that the Arizona law was unconstitutional because only the federal government can do immigration. So maybe there's something that can be done in that direction. But I guess the other thing they can do is cut the funding for some of these cities.
And some of the judges have already said that they can't, some of the district judges. So, I mean, one of the headaches, I mean, the biggest headache, in my opinion, are the district judges that keep interfering with policy rather than with the law.
Right. And now there may be some good news on that on Monday morning. Because
I sure hope so.
The last Supreme Court decision that is still pending is the one where I've seen some legal experts say that the court is going to come down hard on these injunctions. And I'm sure there's a legal way of explaining this, but kind of the layman's explanation is that what they're going to do is they're going to say that a district judge by himself cannot do a national injunction. Now, if they come together and maybe take it to a higher court,
correct,
then that's different, but that would require 3 people.
In essence, the way that it was explained to me, in essence, it is that the president is equal to the Congress, the entire Congress, Senate, and House, and the Congress and the president are equal to the Supreme Court. Right. Now, in order for a district judge to stop what the president is doing, is the same as one senator or one House member trying to pass a law over the head of the president.
Right.
Impossible. It's
Or
gotta be
one member of the House invalidating a Supreme Court opinion, for
exactly
example, or something
exactly.
like that.
I mean, it's
No,
got.
I think it has gone completely off track.
It
And I
has.
think in a way, the good news is that they've gone so far with it that they've actually hurt themselves.
Yeah, exactly.
I think
mean,
if
when
they
you
had only
abuse
done
something,
one,
when
if
you
they had
when you
only
use
done,
it too much,
yeah, if they had only done one, then it wouldn't be so crazy. But I mean, every 5 minutes,
every 5 minutes. I mean, the use of the most recently is now the use of his power to bomb Iran. Already, there is a judge that has spoken up and said that he overstepped his authority.
right?
I mean,
Well,
what's next? I saw a cartoon that said that a district judge had ordered him to rebuild the
plant,
the nuclear reactor.
Yeah, I saw that too, and that's the kind. But sometimes humor is the best way to explain the truth.
Exactly.
That's right. Well, George, I want to thank you as always so much for joining us on this Sunday night. A lot of things to get into, and I do want to get back to some things going on in Texas the next time, including a visit today from Senator Bernie Sanders, who was in Texas, and I saw a little bit of the clip down in, I don't know where he was actually.
He's in East Texas, which is
East Texas,
amazing.
Yeah, and so he's down there talking about how the rich people are running the country.
Yes, how great
that's
socialism is.
Yes, that's right. Well, George, thank you as always so much for your
Thank
time,
you.
and we'll get together soon. Thank you very much. There we go. Our good friend George Rodriguez from South Texas. Just one last thought here about this military operation. Absolutely incredible military operation. And I don't think President Trump's going to have any legal issues here, because the fact that there's more than enough precedent on these actions by the president, and he's not talking about putting troops on the ground or anything like that. These are surgical operations, and we've done a bunch of them in the past. So I don't think it's going to be an issue. But sometimes I guess you gotta, if you're a Democrat, it seems like you always have to criticize Trump. And I think these Democrats are missing the boat on that. For example, with ICE, if Democrats were to say, look, let's work with Trump, let's get the criminals out, and then let's do something else together, I think that would be more beneficial to them as a party, and would actually be more harmful to Trump as well politically, because they would be working with him rather than just simply criticizing him, which I think ends up helping President Trump. Well, thank you so much for your time. Have a wonderful day, everybody. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas, and we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye, everybody.